Warner Brothers is finally releasing the Snyder Cut, and all the right people are pissed. So after years of fans begging for Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, Warner Brothers decided to release it on HBO Max in 2021. They even gave Zack Snyder $20 million to finish his cut. For those who don't know, Warner Brothers has been on touchy ground with Snyder after the negative reactions to Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. Even though both films did well in the box office, they didn't reach $1 billion, and the negative reaction from fans and critics worried the studio. Rumor has it that WB brought in Joss Whedon to work on the film's mid-production, and they used Snyder's daughter's suicide as a means of getting Snyder off the picture without outright firing him. Because of how this went down, this put Whedon in the odd position of having to use a good chunk of Snyder's footage and then reshoot large chunks of the film to add in scenes, which included the infamous super lip fiasco. Whedon and Snyder couldn't be more different as directors, and it showed in the film. The tone of the theatrical release was way off. Whole sections of character development were missing. We jumped from scene to scene without much cohesion, and the scenes that do work, many of them shot by Snyder, still feel out of place because, like in Batman vs Superman, Warner Brothers decided to cut nearly an hour out of what was supposed to be a two-part film. You've already crammed a two-parter into one film, and then you cut an hour out of it so you can have more showings in a day. So the movie bombed. Hard. Like, we're not going to worry about connecting those movies anymore. Hard. Naturally, some fans wanted to see the film Snyder wanted to make, even if it would be another mess like BVS. Better to see what he intended to do than what we got. And of course, after seeing the success of the Snyder Cut for BVS, Warner Brothers promptly refused to release his cut of Justice League. People even claim no such cut existed, which defies all filmmaking common sense because most directors do small cuts just to make sure things work. Eventually, actors like Jason Momoa admitted the cut existed, and even Snyder got into pushing for the release. So now we're going to get the film, at least part of what he intended. I suspect that if it goes over well, WB might let Snyder finish the film. Henry Cavill is still on as Superman, so Snyder may direct the Superman sequel as well. Ultimately, everyone wins. The people who like Whedon's Justice League film have that film. The people who want to see Snyder's version will have theirs. Either way, WB, or rather AT&T, can make a ridiculous amount of money with HBO Max subscriptions and the eventual Blu-ray release. There's nothing to complain about unless you're a joyless, far-left, woke, progressive SJW crybaby. First we get dickless cuck, Drew Taylor, on Collider saying, quote, "Why releasing the Justice League Snyder Cut sets a dangerous precedent." Yes, Cuckman, tell us why giving fans what they want is a bad thing. Quote, "Fans imagined that the rough cut of Justice League that Snyder submitted to the studio was better than the one released into theaters in November 2017. They shared the hashtag on Twitter, bought billboards in California and New York, flew planes with a giant sign that said release the Snyder Cut trailing behind it. They even got corporations like Subway to contribute to the cause. Worst of all, they cloaked their activity, which grew into something of a public nuisance, under the shadow of charity. They regularly contributed to suicide prevention foundations, which on the outset seems noble, but really was a way of concealing what they were actually doing, bullying everyone." Fuck you. I've known people who killed themselves. Fuck you. You're mad that people donated to suicide prevention foundations? This is bullying to you? Asking the studio to let the director finish his film is bullying to you? The fans spending their own money to prove to the studio there's an audience for the film is bullying to you? No one's being bullied. Fans are asking for, sometimes demanding, the version of the film the studio initially greenlit. That's it. They want to see Zack Snyder's vision, and it could be better or worse. No one knows. We'd simply like to see it. Also, there's a long history of fans petitioning studios to get TV shows and films greenlit or released. We wouldn't have Deadpool had Ryan Reynolds not leaked the test footage and people demanded a film. Drew claims that fans bullied anyone challenging them, or anyone who liked Whedon's mess, but never shows evidence of this. Not a single example. Drew does say that even the actors in the film, Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa, Henry Cavill, and Gal Gadot, supported releasing the Snyder Cut. I don't think they're just doing that out of loyalty. There's also a chance they've actually seen the cut and think it's better than the theatrical release. But Drew just can't accept that and says, quote, "The message is clear. If you bitch and moan enough, chances are that the studio might not only hear you, but agree with you. How dare they? How dare they? Let me check again. Listen to the people who want to give them money. What the fuck is wrong with you? They're in a business, jackass. People are saying, we'll give you our money. You released the fucking film. Yes, how dare a studio listen to the audience? You know, like what they do with test screenings before they release the films? Or didn't you think about that? Then Drew says, quote, fan uproar, which was, at the very least, very annoying, and at the very worst, especially on Twitter, actively threatening, has been vindicated. Their methods have been approved. Everything they did had a purpose because Warner Brothers has finally given them what they wanted. Perish the thought. This is your complaint. That Warner Brothers listened to people demanding this for years and they finally said okay. Here's the thought. What if it wasn't WB holding this up? What if it was Snyder still coping with his daughter's suicide that held this up? What if it was WB waiting until the hate against Snyder's film died down before they released it? But that's not really Drew's issue. See, Drew is still pissy about people demanding J.J. Abrams' original cut of Star Wars Rise of the Pretender. Drew says, quote, I've talked to several people involved with the film who said that it was a trial to get any cut ready for its December release. So the idea that an entirely separate version exists is laughable. Except directors make different cuts of films all the time, and your own statement implies that Abrams tried to get a cut ready for release, meaning he put together several cuts that were rejected or edited until he reached the one that ended up in theaters. It's also well known that studios will edit the director's final cut without the director's input, sometimes without telling the director that they did it. So pretending like this is a conspiracy theory is insanity. This happens. A lot. What this really comes down to is that Drew doesn't like Snyder's films. That's it. Drew's not a Snyder fan. That's fine. You don't have to like his movies. I find them touch and go myself. But to declare that his intended vision of Justice League was bad because you like Whedon's shit show isn't a valid argument, and neither is this. Quote, and it would be wise to remember that this is not a case of an artist having his paintbrush taken away from him midway through completing his masterpiece. Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happened. And it looks like WB just used his daughter's suicide as an easy way to get rid of him. Justice League is a corporate product, one designed to sell Happy Meals and bed sheets and pave the way for additional, equally unambitious product. I don't even work for WB, but fuck you. Snyder agreed to provide something and didn't follow through. These motherfuckers cut 45 minutes out of Batman vs Superman and then let Snyder take the hit for the clusterfuck that followed. And he did. He never once complained about the studio, specifically the president of WB, who ordered the cuts, throwing him under the bus. He took all the heat when the studio basically didn't support him anymore. Whether you like his films or not, you gotta give him credit for that. And it makes sense, given what happened with the Batman vs Superman director's cut, for fans to want to see his vision. Had the studio released that version of the film, it would have been better received. So yeah, when people find out there's an unfinished version of Justice League, they're gonna ask for it, and it's stupid for the studio not to give it to them. And let's be real. If these people were demanding a director's cut of Charlie's Angels or Birds of Prey, this article wouldn't even exist. This article exists only to talk about toxic fandoms, this bullshit far-left idea that all fans who aren't into drag kids and communism are evil white men trying to ruin everything. Or at least that's what Vanity Fair's Karen-in-Chief Joanna Robinson says. She bitches, quote, is releasing the Snyder Cut of Justice League a victory for toxic fandoms? No. That's really the only answer to that question. No. But I love how Joanna carries on this nonsense about toxic fandoms by saying, quote, plenty of earnest pleas came with it, but also vitriol that was extreme even for Twitter, including harassment campaigns targeted at critics, HBO Max, Warner Brothers, and its employees. Former DC film chief Jeff Johns left the platform entirely after receiving endless Twitter attacks. Yes, endless Twitter attacks that virtually no one liked or retweeted. These are the tweets she linked to, where you can see the retweets and likes. The others were cropped out. No one is retweeting them. No one is liking them. This is your evidence of endless Twitter attacks. Please. Then Joanna goes on to weave a straw man of lies so ridiculous I can't believe she doesn't work for the DNC. Joanna, pumpkin, everybody knew that Christopher Nolan was involved in Man of Steel. Everybody knew that Ben Affleck brought in Chris Terrio from Argo to rewrite parts of BVS. Everybody knew that Jeff Johns and Kevin Tsuchihara ran things while Zack Snyder acted as a face to the public. Oh, and Joanna, since you're such a stunning journalist who clearly does her research, Justice League is not DC's answer to Marvel's Avengers. It's the other way around. 3 seconds Googling would have shown that. Now, what's different about Joanna versus Drew is that Joanna seems to hate any attempt to listen to fans. She complains about the ridiculous reaction to Scarlett Johansson's Ghost in the Shell, but then goes on to complain about Vin Diesel's support for the Fast and Furious fans and how this got The Rock and Statham involved and brought dead characters back to life. And she says that like it's a bad thing. I'm not a fan of the Fast and Furious series, but if listening to fans results in movies they enjoy and brings in tons of money, I don't see the problem. If you don't like those films, you don't have to watch them. It's not like someone's coming in and taking over a series or franchise you love and then ruining it. It's someone else's thing. You can criticize it all you want, but I don't understand why you think it's toxic to listen to its fans. I get that fans can be very demanding, but sometimes they're right. Like when they trashed Star Wars The Last Jedi and its shit director Rian Johnson for wanting to subvert expectations. Oh, you knew she was going to bring up that shit. Quote, a segment of the Lucasfilm community that was dissatisfied with Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi mercilessly hounded both the director and at least one of his stars, Kelly Marie Tran, in the wake of that film. Still telling that lie about Tran, huh? Y'all have never shown a strip of proof that fans ran her offline, but keep spinning your lived truth. I'm sure somewhere in the multiverse, that shit actually happened. It seems like Joanna isn't really concerned with the Snyder Cut though. She says, quote, the main concern, where there is concern, is that Warner Media, in harnessing a fan movement to promote the launch of HBO Max next week, has rewarded entitled fandoms of the future. Even if you behave badly, you too could get your own version of a Snyder Cut. And where were you when a certain group of non-fans trashed ScarJo's Ghost in the Shell? Or how about that transgender movie she was going to do that got shelved? Or how about the people who went after The Rock for playing an amputee? Or how about my personal favorite, how people went after Will Smith for not being dark enough to play Venus and Serena Williams' father? Every couple of months there's another controversy about so-called cultural appropriation or some other left-wing bullshit that results in a show or film or movie or game or music video or ad getting pulled or edited, and there's rarely an article in Vanity Fair or on Collider complaining about the toxicity of the left. That stuff is fine, but God forbid someone wants to see Snyder's cut of Justice League. Despite the good they have done raising money for a worthy cause, it's hard to ignore the toxic side of this fandom, who have dared even tweet criticisms about Snyder's work. That happens with all fandoms, honey. Did you see how the Raylos, people who wanted Mary Sue and Emo Ran to hook up, did you see how they went after John Boyega because nigga was fucking with them and it was glorious? He was triggering the shit out them people. No fucks given. None. But I don't remember any of you complaining about that. Seems like your concern is a little limited, as in personal. Quote, I've been told to kill myself on countless occasions by Twitter accounts with either Superman or Batman logos. And yet you're still here. Oh, shut the fuck up, you were thinking it too. Seriously though, this is your complaint. Some people told you to kill yourself, and because they have comic book logos in their profiles, this means they represent all comic book fans. By that logic, shouldn't I take every time someone with a pussy hat or a feminist fist in their profile insults me as proof all feminists are like that? When fandom becomes identity, every negative review seems like a personal attack. I see you've discovered feminism, and the progressive movement, and the transgender non-binary otherkin movement, and religion. Seriously, you're acting like this is unique to fandoms. In not only giving over to these fans, but using their language, hashtag release the Snyder Cut, in its official announcement, HBO Max has given legitimacy to all the actions of this fandom. Not very heroic of them. You mean like companies saying that there's more than 2 genders, or schools telling folks to use people's so-called preferred pronouns. You've got a transgender furrykin in control of Twitch going power-hungry mad. Are we supposed to take that as evidence that Twitch is giving legitimacy to all those zany people? But I'm sure you wouldn't dare challenge that because you'd be called transphobic. But a studio using a term that accurately describes the thing in question, Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, that's given into pressure. You know, I wish I could stroke a hate boner as long as you people do, but I have sex. I know how to put a hate boner to use. Y'all, on the other hand, edge it like champions. Keep on edging, cause the fans ain't going nowhere. Not only do I want to see the Snyder Cut, I want it to be so good that Warner Brothers will let him make the second part and put it in theaters. I want it to do so well, Warner Brothers might just put him back in charge of the movie universe. Not because I think his vision of DC's characters is great, I don't, but just to see the look on your faces. It'd be like the Joker film all over again. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.